Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. One thing that I actually thought we could talk about tonight, because it just seems to be very up in the room, is technology, since we have some here. And I think this is actually a really important topic that we haven't really been talking much about. And I feel like I've been watching it lately. It's been more and more apparent to me. And I've been watching the way it affects me, and I think, the truth is we're all inevitably living with it. I think this is another one of these things where I don't think it's going away. I don't think the cell phone thing's dying out. And now, like we're streaming this, and there's computers and internet, all this stuff. Like, I think it's pretty much here to stay, right? But it's a new thing, and it affects us a lot. And I mean, it impacts our mindfulness considerably, doesn't it? I mean, it's a big thing. And we're following these teachings from like 2,500 years ago, where they had very little technology. Although I'm sure at the time it seemed like the most advanced time there was, right? Whatever was hip in India at the time. But I feel like it's something we have to start really acknowledging. And the way, if you do retreats, at any of the retreat centers around here or wherever, on retreats, like you just do away with it. And it's real easy. It's a real simple solution. Turn off your phones. Remember the last retreat I did, they put out a basket, and they're like, everyone put your phones in here. And they want you to actually, forfeit your phone altogether, and get it back at the end. And it's a beautiful experience, I gotta say. It's a fantastic experience just to completely unplug from everything and just be, off the grid for a while. And it's fantastic. I gotta say, I noticed there's definitely kind of, at least for me, there's a withdrawal period. Definitely, like, even on retreat, I'll, like in dull moments, feel myself reaching in and like, dude, there's no cell phone in your pocket. It'll be just like a little reflex. And it's nice. I highly recommend it, just to even remember what that's like. But the problem with that for me, although that's a great experience to have, when you get back into this real world, or or less real world, whatever, but the world we find ourselves in, that technology's back, it's waiting for you, and you're no more equipped at dealing with it. You know what I mean? So this kind of sort of extreme solution of just getting rid of it, it's nice, but it isn't. I think the next step is actually some kind of wise relationship with technology. And to inevitably figure out, well, how do we integrate this? And how do we use the technology and relate to it with wisdom and mindfulness and awareness? And I thought I would just kind of introduce that topic. And I could say a couple of things about it, but I'd like to hear what your experience is with it. One of the things that I think is important, one of the reasons I've been thinking about it lately, or just kind of watching it more, is I think a big part of this practice is a kind of honesty that we have to have with ourselves, a kind of integrity about, hey, how are things really affecting me? And I feel that it's actually important to acknowledge just how powerful and how kind of addictive this stuff really is. For a long time, I just didn't want to admit that. I was just like, no, it's not, whatever, I don't care. I'm not like one of those people on it all the time. And it's like, all right, but you're on it like 75% of the time, And I noticed that it does impact me. And I feel like that when we actually admit that something is powerful, then we can be much wiser with it, you know? Like we can actually go, oh wow, this is a powerful energy. These things are quite, you know, I don't know if addictive is the right word, but sort of, right? I mean, like they just pull you in. I've had time disappear. You know, you're like, I will just check this one message on Facebook. Like, has it been 2 hours? You know, and then have you ever had this where you get on to, like, you're like, oh, I need to check that one thing. And then it's an hour later, you watched a bunch of other things, like, and then you get on, you're like, oh, I never actually checked the one thing I went on there to check. So, you know, when we meditate, part of that practice is we don't say, hey, just get rid of your thoughts and just don't get distracted, stay with your breath. Because we know that it's just not true. So we acknowledge the power of thoughts and just how compelling they are and how much we get carried away. You know, when we work with, you know, the Buddha's teachings on greed, hatred, and delusion, we don't deny that. We don't pretend like we don't have that. We're like, no, these are real forces. These things really do affect us. So how can we be mindful and humble and actually see them? You know, this practice is in many ways about making our unconscious experience conscious. About actually seeing the truth of our mind, seeing how this stuff works, and kind of putting it out in front of us where we can see it. You know what I mean? Where you're like, no, actually, it's like, well, no, I got a lot of thoughts and all this stuff's going on, but I actually want it out here where I can see it, rather than kind of being a puppet on the strings of these things that, you know, from behind me, so to speak. So I think with technology, it's actually exactly the same sort of thing. It's only by admitting and being honest, we're like, oh wow, this is really powerful, or wow, often I'm not actually in a lot of control over it, or often it is affecting my presence and mindfulness and my mood, my energy, all kinds of things. Then some kind of solution becomes possible. Right? Then we can have a discussion about it. We can learn from each other. We can actually see what's more skillful. But to get to something that's more skillful, often the first step is actually seeing and acknowledging the less skillful part. You know? And while we're trying to, and for me, it's always like, well, I'm trying not to see that, like, no, everything's fine. There's no problem here. Everything's fine. It's like, well, that just means you can't get to the solution. So I'm curious, does anyone have anything they want to say about it or share about it? Like, how's it been? We've been on this, like, pretty strong technological push for what? I was thinking, I think it was, 08 that iPhones came out? Was it 08? I think I got my first iPhone in 08. Am I wrong? Right? Something like that? Right? That's only 7 years. I mean, this thing where you have like all this stuff at your fingertips, that's 7 years old. I mean, it wasn't even that good. I mean, this is actually another thing that I realized. I was like, what's going on lately? I've been noticing some changes in myself with it. And I've been watching, like, in some ways, me be more distracted. And I thought, what's going on? And I realized that, you know, it's really only in the last handful of years that the internet's gotten really, well, good, so to speak. And maybe that's a really bad thing. But like, it wasn't even that good for a while, right? Like, when you try to use your phone, like, half the stuff wouldn't work. Remember, like, you try to watch something and just be glitchy, and you're like, yeah, whatever. But it's only, like, in the last handful of years, like, it's just gotten, good's the wrong word, but it works. The shit works now. Like, you can really get lost on it forever now, right? Because it's just so smooth and easy now. So, I think it's, I don't know, at least for me, I really think it's a much bigger deal than I realized. It kind of snuck up in there, didn't it? It kind of gradually, you know, there's this, I don't know if this is literally true. I'm assuming it's true. You know about the frog in the boiling water stories? You know about that? just in case somebody doesn't. They say that if you put a frog in water and very gradually, and turn on like a really light heat, and then so the temperature just changes very gradually, that it'll eventually just boil to death. That it'll just sit there. You know, as opposed to if you heat it up real quick, then it'll jump out. But if you just keep increasing it gradually, it'll just cook. And don't try this at home, but at least that's what I've heard. But I think there's a way that that's happening in a sense. Like this technological stuff is just getting stronger and better and more like ever present. I mean, we're streaming this whole thing now, and I'm just kind of lately going, hey, how is this affecting all of us? And I haven't heard too many people. I feel like the thing I hear most is the way people talk about it is this kind of like, some people are just like, oh, this sucks, but it's like, yeah, but it's not going away. So what's the middle path? Like, how do we work with it in a wise way? So, yes.
I concur that it's difficult, this technology, and I also have trouble wasting time, and I've also had trouble wasting time with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And man, things seem so similar
Wow.
that I'm sort of treating it that way.
Mm.
That this is sort of a drug.
Right.
It's sort of
But it's harder, right? Because with alcohol, I mean, you can quit. You can say, okay, that's it. You know, I'm going to the program, I'm doing it. And you know whether you're drinking or not.
yeah, I wish it was that easy.
Right? But with technology, it's like,
Well, Joe, on that retreat last time, Josh talked about, you know, dopamine rushes versus serotonin, and I think that my sense is that urge to check an email is kind of like, I get a little dopamine boost from that.
yeah, did you guys all, yeah, I've heard that too, that they've done some studies where apparently you actually get a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And so it really feels good to your system. It's not just psychological sort of, it's really something that happens. You know where it gets really freaky? If you have any young kids in your life, have you ever watched them just devour iPads? Like when my niece and nephew come over, like that's really all they want. I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? Let's do it. And I feel like they got this thing like, all right, how long do we got to humor this guy until he hands over the iPad? And they'll just sit there. I mean, they can just sit there forever, for hours.
I saw this great poster in Mission a few months ago that said, like a hand-printed poster that said, when I feel alone, I touch my phone. I thought that was good because, like you said, if you try to put it down for a second, just and observe how long before you feel that urge to reach for it, it's really quite something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suffer from acute depression, and rethinking my relation to technology was one of the big tasks that I had to take on, precisely because of the issue of structure. That structure is necessary in order to kind of to get out of depression and to be able to kind of organize and structure your life. And for me, it wasn't even necessarily that I was wasting time on the computer, but you know, I love programming, so I would just get sucked into that. It was easy for me to lose time. So I found that even the same sorts of exercises that you were talking about for breathing, actually, you know, something to measure against the experience of using the technology to say, I'm going to do this for half an hour, and then be able to come back and say, was that in fact what I did? You know, not judgmentally, but to have something to
with some kind of accountability.
Exactly, to evaluate the experience has been very helpful in sort of reworking that in a way that's more.
And how long have you been doing this now?
Probably, there was a period where I couldn't do it at all when I was really sick, and in the last,
You couldn't do it all. You had to go cold turkey for a while.
And I think in the last 6 months, I've been able to sort of come back and be more sort of conscious of how I'm using it, and be able to use it for short periods and in ways that I feel I have more control over.
And so do you structure it like throughout your day, like I can't use it before this time?
Yeah, I'll say I'm gonna take half an hour and deal with email,
Uh-huh.
you know, and that's it. And then,
So what I'm hearing is kind of no just freestyle, open-ended time,
that's
just
very,
kind of,
that's very dangerous for me.
right,
Yeah, it's very,
yeah.
there's a great risk of falling
Yeah.
back into bad habits and that way.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that really resonates with me. I mean, this is kind of part of what I think we have to start doing, is talking about it honestly, like just, how challenging it really is. Because there's this way, you're just home and you're just doing this thing, and it's like the email goes into the Facebook, goes into a movie, goes into some article that I had no intention of reading. And what's hard about it, I'm finding one of the things that's so challenging is like, there's just no end to it. I mean, I'll even have these times where I'm like, no, this really was a very interesting article. I wasn't just watching cat videos. But it's like, but there's no end to them. I mean, every interesting article in the world is in this thing. And I find that that's actually one of the challenges, how to say no. Because it's kind of like, there's certain stuff on there that's sort of like the junk food of the internet, where you're like, oh, I don't need to watch that. Well, maybe a little, no, okay. But then there's this stuff where you're like, no, this is an important issue. This is, it's about the environment, or it's about like politics, things that really are important. But like at some point, like, but this isn't my job. This isn't my occupation. I mean, I can be here forever reading this stuff.
There's a comment online, which I'll get to in a second, but just
How poetic. Well, no, and starts getting, but that's a great, and there's times where it can be obviously used really well and very beneficial.
But one of the things, to your point about the internet getting better, is that I'm reading a book on artificial intelligence, and a lot of the stuff that we see is the machines showing us what we want to see. There's so much data on us, on me, on you, on everybody, that they're doing all these analysis, and the stuff that pops up in your Facebook feed is not random. And the stuff that pops up in the news feed, if you look at Google News, it's not random. It's very tailored to you. And that's a large part of the reason that the internet seems better. But on the other hand, it's like there's a lot of data about you out there that these companies are using to sometimes give you information that you want, but then also sometimes to guide you towards buying things and all like that.
I was thinking how the myth of Narcissus ties into that. It's not a myth of the past, it's a myth about the future.
Yeah.
Narcissus is what's happening. We're looking at ourselves.
That I'm seeing my own reflection in it. I notice that whenever I look at anything, or buy anything, then that product is now.
Yeah. Right.
And the only time it's weird is like, I already bought that. Why are you trying to sell it? You got that because I just bought that. And now that you think I'm going to buy it again, that's what.
But the question online
Yeah, what's
is,
the question online?
he's asking, because tech makes things easier now, it doesn't make it too easy to indulge craving and aversion.
I think so. I mean, I definitely think, man, it's just right there at your fingertips. Just a click away. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I even notice just staying home is so much easier now. We used to get lonely. You need to go out and see people. Right now, it's just like, well, I just saw everybody on Facebook. I mean, I could just stream the thing. I don't even have to come to meditation, for those of you that live close by. There's just, I can order food. It's just getting crazy.
That's why they're called cell phones, right?
Well, you're in your little cell. Yeah. Good. So I want to say, so in this moment in the conversation, like for this to be a mindful thing, right? As you're hearing this, notice how you're feeling, right? Because we actually want to bring an embodied kind of mindfulness to this. Like for me, I'm watching a kind of fear arise. Like this is kind of freaking me out. But that's a healthy thing. I mean, if you're finding yourself being kind of concerned, that's probably a good thing. And so So just be present with this, because this is, you know, your own self being like, oh, how do I feel about this? And because this is the kind of inner truth that where wisdom comes from. And based on, you know, based on something, you know, you'll have a deep feeling of like, man, this just doesn't feel right to me. That's what makes change possible in our own lives, right? It can't just be an idea like, oh, I think this would be better, or I want to be a better Buddhist. Like, it's kind of got to matter on this deeper level. So just as we're having this discussion, watch how it affects you and watch what arises.
I also struggle with like spending a lot of time on computers, and there are apps you can download that tell you how much time you've spent on it. And
Oh,
it'll
is there?
tell you like every 5 minutes, like you've been on your phone for like 15 minutes now. It's like, why don't you do something else?
Oh, that's cool. That's good. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Funny, that one wasn't advertised on my. What's it? How do you find these? Is there a name
the one
or
I
just?
use for iPhone is called Moment, M-O-N-E-N-T.
Oh yeah.
I know there's one for like Mac and Windows computers. I forget the name of it.
Right.
And I'm sure there's some for Android.
Wow, that'd be interesting to see that. Yeah, thank you.
There's also apps that will black out your screen. For
Yeah.
like 15
Oh really?
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can set.
Wow. I don't know how I feel about that. Wow, that's good to know. Yeah.
For me, the fear is very, very immediate. I mean, this shit has been around for like 8 years, 7 years, or whatever. And like 8, 9 years ago, what the fuck was an app?
Right.
That was someone who was fucked in Scrabble and was trying to play off Apple.
Right.
Now it's like that's a whole market.
Yeah.
That's a whole thing. And like 3 years ago, what the fuck was an Uber?
Right.
Now it's the Sears building, blocks from my house, and I'm watching high-rise apartments go up, and I'm driving past thinking like, I want a Molotov cocktail, you motherfuckers. Like, this is a blue-collar neighborhood. You're not supposed to be here. And that anger and that aggression is very, very much fear-based. And like watching the neighborhood change around me, watching this Sears building become this hub that I'm gonna ride past in fury. And like, just like seeing whatever this new wave is based on like this weird secondary market for, you know, whatever app is cool for like ordering Indian food or, you know, fighting somebody.
Right.
So like feeling your space in the food chain shifting due to something that you may not be participating in at all.
Right.
Is very threatening. Like I'm a blue collar worker. Like I go out with physical tools and I do real things for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm consistently getting more and more young white customers in my neighborhood in West Oakland. They're like, why are you here? It's like, oh, because it's near BART. You can get into work to
Right.
work for whatever one word company you work for. And it's really, really intimidating.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I know what you're talking about. I mean, I think we all feel that, especially in this city. I think it starts by, you said, is being aware of it, you know, like having compassion and sensing what is true for us around that. And as much as I, feel that and definitely understand what you're describing, I was wanting to keep this conversation, although that's definitely part of it. I'm wanting to keep it more towards like how we individually manage the experience of it. This is a whole
Sure.
huge topic.
Yeah, it's a whole nother.
But it's a whole other Oprah, you know.
Sure, of course.
And I always thought that was a funny thing. But you know what I mean? Because that's like the way it's affecting the economics and all of that stuff, which is huge. I mean, absolutely huge. And obviously those two things are, another side of the same coin. But how are we just managing our presence and our time with these highly addictive gadgets? I really want to honor what you said because that's a huge deal. I just want to really acknowledge that. Sure. but I want to try to see if we can keep it to this thing here.
So in a way, I kind of embody the other side of the spectrum. So I actually don't like looking at. I don't like checking my email. I don't like getting text messages.
Right.
I don't like surfing the web. Like,
Right.
in a way, this is sort of like being present ideal, right?
Yeah.
And yet, when I find that there's a lot of guilt that I'm not there for the people in my life who want to have that 12-hour, 5-hour, 2-hour turnaround.
Right.
And also feeling like I'm getting left behind
Yeah.
in the world. And so while I might be very present to what I'm doing, I'm also missing out on many opportunities to connect. Across the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, that's a good point. Did everybody agree? Was that?
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah,
Because
please.
I'm like more on that spectrum. Like I hate having my phone. I could turn it off. Like I almost leave my phone home at home every day. Like seriously. Like and I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, I could have been on my phone. But I manage an architectural and design firm, and I'm like, my job requires me to be like on call almost 24/7, like to get my paycheck. And it's like I know I'm like looking down another path to have another career, but at this time I don't feel like I'm around all these other people who are not, they don't care about being mindful on anything. Our technology is, we're building a building and I need to be there to make sure that it gets constructed correctly. And it's like I can't not do it, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
I struggle every day.
Yeah. No, I know. I hear you.
I turn Facebook off like every 6 months for like 2 months,
Yeah.
and that really helps. Like if anyone, like you can just shut it off.
Yeah.
It'll come right back up when you log back
It doesn't
on.
really die.
No, it doesn't really die. It doesn't like go away. But like I find it's like so helpful. Like every couple months, I'll just be like, okay.
Yeah. See, I think this, I mean, I wish I had some answer. I obviously don't have any answer. I mean, I'm in it as much as everybody else. But this is what's happening. I mean, this is what's happening to our world, right? I mean, I actually teach mindfulness classes online. So, for mindful schools, and in some ways it's great. I mean, we have people from just like all over the world that would have no access to this whatsoever, and they're so grateful, and they're very good classes. And also, like, I actually have to log in every day for a couple of hours to teach these classes. And so this is I think this is where we're really in this quandary. I mean, this is what makes this hard, is that I wish it would be as simple as we could all go, you know what, fuck all this, let's just turn it all off and like live, all mindful like the Buddha did. But we can't. I mean, we actually just can't. I mean, most of our jobs depend on it. And so that's what I'm trying to explore with all of us is, so what's the middle path, right? You had your hand up.
This is kind of a message of hope, maybe.
Please, we can really use it.
We need it.
Like 6 years ago, they're like pilot. I'm a teacher for 20 years. Pilot 1-to-1, where each kid had his own device. And the first couple of years, it was like, we want to use them all the time. And then the shift kind of happened where they were like, well, we do that all the time. Can we do something? They like to do the projects and the hands-on experimenting. I'm seeing that complete shift now, where like, and that's what they want to do is the real stuff.
They being students?
Yeah, eighth graders. And
Eighth graders.
They're really, the shift is kind of, in my room, it's the hands-on projects and experiments. And, but in the beginning, it was new. Now it's like, well, they do that all the time. Like, why would you want to do that in the classroom too?
Oh, wow.
That's
what I'm
great.
feeling.
That
It's
is
like really nice.
That is good. Yeah, Julie.
I mean, one thing that, just been thinking about it a little bit, I saw that same When I'm Lonely, I Touch My Phone, and I remember taking a picture of it with my phone. And actually after that, for like quite some time now, a lot of what I've been trying whenever I can is to use like the way that I engage, especially with Facebook, as kind of a mindfulness bell. Because part of what, if I do notice, like, oh wow, I've been like looking at this for a while now, I can actually stop and say, how do I feel? Oh, I'm waiting for something to happen. And it's that same question that I feel you know, we're asked a lot in practice, are you waiting for something to happen? Are you waiting for something to stop happening?
Right.
Like, where are you actually at? And for me, a lot of the time, I'm actually able to say, like, oh yeah, like, I'm lonely, I'm feeling craving, I'm waiting for something to happen. That's what's real for me right now. And digging around on Facebook actually does show me that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. You know, we're out of time, so we'll have to end it here for now. But what I'd like to say is this. I really like this conversation, and I wish we had a lot more time. So I'd like to invite you all to try something, which is this week, because I'll be back again next Monday. Just so you know, Matthew's on retreat. Usually me and Matthew alternate. He's on retreat right now, so I'm doing all of November. So you got me for a few more weeks to tolerate me. But then Matthew's going to come back with lots of insights from his retreat. So December will really be on. But what I'd like to invite everyone to do is do some kind of practice around this week. Like let's all try something. I'm not even going to say what. You pick your own. Maybe, I don't know, like limited or like that gentleman said, like set some kind of time, or maybe get that, what's it called, moment?
Yep, moment.
We're plugging apps here, folks. We're plugging apps. Apps created the problem, and apps will fix the day. But whatever.
And we'll live stream all of it.
But try something. Like do something intentional this week around technology, and then come back next week. And next week we'll continue this conversation. And you can share what, you know, let's all pull together and share what we've learned. Because I think there's a way to use mindfulness to approach this question. There's a way to use our practice of insight and investigation and presence and use a kind of Buddhist framework to actually be present and mindful and investigate what is the nature of this experience and what do we do as a community? Like, what do we as a culture, as a subculture, like, how do we handle this? I mean, I don't think anyone's just going to come up and, you know, the government's not going to issue answers. Like, it's up to us to figure it out for ourselves and see what works. And I think mindfulness is the very, and Buddhism, in this kind of reflection, is the very mechanism by which we can do it. So come back next week and let's continue this conversation. Announcements?
We have a day-long coming up a little bit later in the month that Pavan Varesha is teaching on trauma and mindfulness. And there's also a basket for Dana. We are, as you all know, because you have all been here before, entirely supported by your generosity. And in such a way that we've never had to turn anyone away for lack of funds. We've been able to keep this going for 6 months with great programming and hope to continue to do so for a very long time. Your generosity makes a really big difference. Thank you for being a part of this.
So just to close the evening, bring your awareness back to your body. And just see how it is right now. May the merit generated by us coming together like this as a community, as a sangha, support each other's practice, each other's wisdom, in exploring these very real quandaries of our time that we find ourselves in. And to see if we can bring to bear the fruits of our practice and wisdom to help us with the challenges, these unprecedented challenges that we're facing now. We dedicate and share this merit with beings everywhere. May we all be free.